Welcome to Storybook English, where the power of knowledge and the ability to change your mindset come together in a captivating journey of learning and imagination. The idea behind this channel is to read a book and provide you with a summary and explanation, rather than giving a full review. If you like the idea of the channel, I would be honored if you subscribed. Bring your favorite drink and let's enjoy. In Chapter 5 of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Mark Manson explores the concept that we are always making choices, even if we don't realize it. He challenges the common belief that we are victims of circumstance or that our lives are completely determined by external factors. Manson argues that taking responsibility for our choices is crucial for personal growth and happiness. He emphasizes that we have the power to choose how we respond to any given situation, regardless of the circumstances. By acknowledging this power, we can regain control over our lives and shape our experiences in a more meaningful way. Like I told you in the opening of this video, certainly or often, 99 intervals 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. You have circumstances in life that are out of your control of your own volition and have had a very strong impact on your life. Reduce the number of options you have. For example, there are people who have lost limbs and people who have had chronic diseases that prevented them from pursuing a certain job or profession. There are people who have lost their vision, there are people who have lost their hearing, and some of them can no longer speak. And the myriad types of things, whether on a physical level or at the level of relationships or circumstances in life. Some of them lost their father, who had a bond, some lost their mother, who was the source of tenderness and inclusion, some lost a life partner, who lost a father, brother, friend, or even at the level of professional life and trade, some of them broke up, some lost their company, and their money from wealth became almost possible to the point of poverty. Many circumstances, my friend who follows them, are difficult to count. This topic we have already talked about in detail, and I see it from the best dealings that a person can do with these circumstances was in the first habits section of the 7 habits. Be proactive. I strongly advise you, if you suffer from circumstances affecting your life, that you go. For me, from Stephen's point of view, Richard Covey tackled this topic at length and in a better way than Mark, but as Mark Manson used to do, he should give you his delicious touch on any topic he talks about. He said to you, "Oh, long-lived, these cases have two sides of blame and responsibility," and he said to you, "I know what is the difference between you blaming your circumstances and the responsibility that falls on you for this and that. You understand me more, as it merges with me your statement in people who have blamed and continue to blame circumstances beyond their control that have affected their lives negatively. I am living this day because it has become mine. My life is very disrupted because of the thing that has hit me, and I believe this talk blames circumstances beyond control." He said no one can ever blame him for this thing. If anyone blames circumstances beyond their control, he has a point and your words are logical, but what is the blame for the thing, he says, but we blame him for the thing that happened, and here comes the responsibility, my friend. He told you yes, you may have circumstances that you blame for, but you have a responsibility for these circumstances and dealing with them. This is not to say that he told you no matter what happened to you in your life that may have informed you or limited your options affect you negatively. You have a responsibility to react to this situation. How do you deal with these circumstances and situations? Because as soon as you have a harsh circumstance, you will have options, even if they are limited, but at the very least you will have 2 options, either give up or fight to change these circumstances, or in other words, survive them. And give an example, friend of the follower, "Oh grandfather admired bomb." We give 2 examples. The first said, as if you open one day the door of your house and throw a baby in front of the house, this is a circumstance in which you are the owner of the fault never, but now you have a responsibility to make a decision about this position. Takes the child and adopt it, raised, and will produce many problems because of this decision. Be careful, or you take him to a care home, and this decision will also produce negative results in the future. It is enough for you, and the responsibility fell on your shoulders. It's over, my friend. He told you that even if you shut the door and make the child sick, this decision will cause many circumstances in the future that can cause it. A sweet but sweeter example is no less realistic and logical than the first, but more popular. He said, like a judge in the court, the judge of the court rules in a case in which he has neither a camel nor a camel. Exactly, my friend, who follows what has to do with neither the first party nor in the second party, nor in the crime that occurred in the first place, whether it was theft, murder, embezzlement, or any. A judge has anything to do with this case, but it is his responsibility to make the decision and adjudicate in this case. The decision that will come out of you, my friend who is watching, will affect the course of many events in the future, whatever decision he makes, and it will have an impact, and this is the responsibility that Mark is talking about as I see it. A very beautiful and clear example. You are now reflecting this topic on yourself exactly. Yes, circumstances have become in your life beyond the control of any. Yes, circumstances have become in your life that negatively affected you, that limited your choices and the opportunities available to you in life, affecting you either financially, physically, morally, or even socially. Yes, you have harsh and painful circumstances, my friend follower, but you are responsible for your reaction to these situations, which have become either to give in to them or you are looking for ways to survive at all costs. And do not convince me that what you have is a choice. You do not have the choice, and any decision you make at this moment will affect your life in the future. And examples from reality are very many and countless. But let me tell you something very strange. I am sure that you have become in your life the same situations, some of which you have surrendered to and some of which have overcome. I have found solutions for them, and if you direct the video and think about this topic and try to retrieve in memory, believe me, there is no one in us who has lost a mother, friend, life partner, son, job, position, prestige, health, or anything except what you lost something, and this loss affected you negatively. I give you a general example, and I am sure that some of these bad circumstances have come out of them, but apart from your life, my friend, the follower is effective. Let's take examples from the ground. William James is one of the people who faced very harsh circumstances in his life, from the moment this boy was born from a wealthy family, and from the day we were born in the diseases of the whole world. I was the first to be born, of course. By the way, a simple cat. I did not drink a drop of my mother's milk once. My follower friend, I was completely rejecting and insisting on a decision, and I expect the cause of so many diseases in my childhood was because of this thing. And also the bright side of this story is immunity has become very strong for what I grew up due to diseases. The important thing is to return to William James, a person from the boy, who always suffers from diseases, and gave a brief about these diseases. One problem with the eyes made him blind for a period of his childhood too, and a terrible abdominal disease made him follow a very severe diet. 3 hearing problems. Imagine 4 back cramps so severe that it lasts for days, a chair that can't move. As a result of these health problems, James sat most of his time at home, unable to make friends, unable to have an enjoyable childhood, and unable to settle many things in his life. Suffer. William James suffered greatly at the beginning of his life, and while sitting in this house, he spent most of his time drawing and loved drawing. He dreamed of becoming one of the greatest painters on the planet, and he lived in very difficult circumstances, and yet he had a very strong ambition. Unfortunately, despite this ambition, William James failed to become a creative painter. Of course, William James from a wealthy family has a sister, and God willing, I will not tell you about the successes achieved by his brother, his sister. His brother became a very well-known novelist at the time I became a very famous author of books, and the father was borrowing from his son William. This, of course, some wealthy families do not want to fail, never even in their children, so his father tried to save him from the spiral of failure. He lives it now by medium. He entered Harp University and in the field of medicine as well, of course. Harvard University is aware that we tell you almost the most powerful university on the planet. So William began to study at this university. He is not convinced of medicine, but a base says that this could be the way in which I will finally succeed, and indeed William is studying at the university. They are between failing success, meaning study, severity, and so on. But during his time William was studying, he felt that everything that worked was a deceitful falsehood. Mo is never convinced, never. He even said okie medicine. But I am convinced of this thing that I feel that if he achieves this success, he will achieve it for the sake of people and for himself. Of course this feeling is very bad. William was aware of this, and William decided to take a bold step and learn from Harvard University. His father's anger is the wrath of God does not show you often. His father is not without empty words, and from Harvard University you keep silent about Brazil. Of course I wasn't kidding. This topic was in the 19th century, my friend, the follower, that is, in the 1800. Of course, at that time, traveling to Brazil is temperament. Today is even harder than traveling to Brazil in the days of Corona. He told you, I want to live real adventures in the Amazon forests, William, the Amazon forests, and you are even in a serious health situation. He told you, yes, I will live this experience. The matter ended, and indeed the thing that was expected became the disease heaped on him again, my follower friend, the disease of convulsions, disorders and so on, to the point that he almost lost his life and does not know, complete with the delegation with which he was traveling. And imagine, my friend, who follows the severity of the disease, they left him and continued their journey, waiting. The man was bedridden by a grandfather, and despite this, my follower friend, miraculously survived and entered the second calamity, that he spent months trying to return to his homeland and have a cruelty. That temptation was on William, and finally destiny due to his state, and was received by his father, who was angry with him in every sense of the word and failed him unfriendly. He enters a palace and enters it with him. He goes out looking further afield, and William feels that he is really a failure and enters the cycle of depression. So far from you, my follower friend, so far away from you that he has reached a point where he thinks about ending his life to this degree. William arrived in thinking Alan William is a character exactly. He suffered a lot of his life because of circumstances beyond the control of diseases that were the biggest obstacle, and as we said, he had options, my friend. Following this talk is very dangerous to prove to you that you are responsible for the choices and reactions you make to these situations. He told you, but before he finished his life, he listened those days to one of the philosophers and sat listening for a while, to the point that the philosopher influenced him a bit and gave him a final flame of hope that made between him and himself salvation. I am some myself 1 year, but next year, starting today, either I succeed or I end my life directly. This year that I am living now, I will take responsibility for everything that goes in my life, regardless of external circumstances. Look, my friend William James decided to take responsibility for a year for me. I take responsibility for everything in my life regardless of diseases. I used to live regardless of circumstances beyond the control of. I am the one who will take responsibility, and in only 1 year, and I try to change my life with all my strength. If I fail, then it is inevitably failure. My friend, the follower will end his life. William James, and what happened, my friend follower, is the thing that Mother William James was expecting to talk about. Changed his life that year, and became a famous science of American flags to this day. William James is an American philosopher, historian, psychologist, and even the first psychologist to give courses in psychology. This is William James, my follower friend, who has had at least 2 options that do not end his life and die. Suddenly this becomes the great person we are talking about. I swear to God that these words are true and that your life is about choices made available to you by God regardless of circumstances and everything. You base living today at 99% is because of the decisions you made in the past. What's your life today? I am writing your life today in which everything came both positively and negatively. Everything you live today is the product of decisions that you had in the past, and you made a certain decision, not taking the strongest bitter truth, and everything you will live in the future depends on the choices made available to you by the Lord of the worlds and that you will take today, my follower friend, and just as the book Mark Manson called you are in a state of permanent choice. You are now gathered watching it. You have millions or even trillions of possibilities, and after you finish this video, you will have millions of trillions of possibilities. Wash the cup of coffee you drink from. You go to watch a movie on Netflix, you go learn something that will benefit you in the future, you go take one of the steps towards your life goal that you want, you go and try to open a store for you, you open a notebook trying to plan in the future, you apologize to someone you skipped yesterday or the days that passed, or you go to gift someone. You love the gift of your mother, father, partner or anyone. You have millions of possibilities that the Lord of the worlds has given you, and the decision you take in it affects your life today and affects your life in the future. And the face of music, I am so says God Almighty, and they did not oppress us, but they themselves were oppressed by those who had options available, and they were the ones who chose the options that brought injustice to themselves. So you have the right to blame the circumstances for what you want, but you have a responsibility. Mark Manson tells you the fundamental difference between blame and responsibility. Now let us leave the drama and enter the 6th chapter. Chapter 6 is a purely philosophical chapter. Get ready, you are about to take a dose of philosophy. Philosophy means lack of logic. The chapter 6 started with this excellent title, You Are Wrong, and So Am I. And what he wants to convey in this title is that you are careful to think that you are right. Most of the time you had the situation where you lived and thought you were right or still right. Beware. You may be caught in the illusion trap of thinking that you are right when you are in fact wrong. He told you this method or this method is one of the best methods for awareness, perception and improvement of self and even external circumstances. I think I give you a simple example, and it is found in the book. Suppose that someone opens a store, and despite the amount of advertising he markets and the quality of the goods and the look and feel of the store, he is not attractive, and when details come with him you find that he is fully convinced that he is right and that he did all possible reasons that make his store succeed. And in spite of this, he says to you, I settled everything I have, this is right, this is right, this is right, this is right, and this is true. So the problem of those who think that everything is right, or the way they walk thinks they are right, as long as they have this intellectual perspective, then the truth will never reach the error and will never improve the development of this example, and examples of such are many. Some of them, for example, in relationships with your partner, you see their relationship with their partner crumbling and destroying. He says everything is true. The fault is from me, from my life partner, from the circumstances, or from the circumstances that are public, never. Beware that you think you are right, and Mark Manson always tells you that you are wrong. Doubt every decision you make, that the mistake of questioning everything you settle before, the mistake of the unemployed people who are sitting at home is not looking for a job. Look for the mistake you make, and it does not prevent you from reaching the job. You see everything God willing. No one disagrees with this, and at the same time no one disagrees that everything has reasons to take. There is no human being sitting on the bed who is not settled, and nothing is in a coma that will have this billion overthrown by what is in the universe. This has reasons that you should work with. So when you see something in your life that is broken, or in a relationship with your life that is destroyed, or in something you are failing at, or what do you achieve? Make sure that you are wrong in a mistake that exists in you in any way or in any aspect. Once you question everything, you are working and you will come to a better conclusion. And he told you, of course, philosophically, there is no state in this universe that is absolutely correct. I wish you understand the structure of this sentence. There is no absolute truth or absolute truth. There is no human being in us who ever lives in this state of 100% correct. But in a case where there are fewer mistakes than the one after that, he tells you, for example, you walk through life and settle things that you think you are right in. After a period of time you come back and discover that you were wrong. When you were your age you were settling the mistakes, and today I discovered that I was wrong. He told you to be healthy. You think that every day you are both. You have no, but you are less mistakes than the case before it. This perspective, once you realize this fact, and I agree with it, will greatly improve your situation to always be skeptical of your condition and that you may be at fault. It helps you actually minimize the mistakes you make. And he once mentioned a story that says, "My beloved betrayed me." He says, "My beloved betrayed me." The impact of this betrayal was very strong on my life. He says, "I go to bars and drink to the point of drunkenness. Very sad, and my life was disrupted in many aspects, and I always blamed it. One day he tells me, no one tells me not to betray me. I bought more from you and ended my relationship with her." And he says, after a while I returned to her and tried to return to her. Says, "Imagine I was pathetic in every sense of the word and always blamed him for anything that happens in my life and for what became in our relationship." He says, "Until I reached a stage of awareness, and awareness is true, and true I was in it, and you say that I will not live long. Impossible, and I may be the one who is wrong." He says God Almighty actually pointed fingers at him. Go back to the Dale Carnegie series and you will see this talk. This is repeated a lot. "I accuse myself that I was the reason why she betrayed me." Says, "Imagine when I adopted this perspective. Talat Vinny, 1,000 defects and real reasons made me the reason why she betrayed." Says, "Convinced that it is impossible to betray if Vinny was not defects and wrong, of course." Says, "Pay attention, for sure I never justify her betrayal. She remains wrong about betrayal until the hour comes, but I'm talking about the causes, about the mistakes that existed in me that you were settling in our relationship, and I think I was right, and that ultimately caused this betrayal." He says, "As soon as you start questioning everything you think you are right about, you will reach very impressive and beautiful results. What is absolute truth and never absolute right? There is no case that is true at all, but it is less wrong than the case before it." And this is a kind of beautiful perception, so that we talk about antiquity in the introduction to this section, and he used to say, "Today we laugh at people who lived 500 years ago or 1,000 or 1,500 years ago, and laugh at the superstitions. They were the ones who lived on them, fully aware that their consciousness was much less than their awareness, and their perception is much less than ours." Al-Balushi says, "The strange irony made me imagine people who come 500 years later and laugh at our condition and ignorance. Our mistakes and lies are lived today. Imagine saying, I'm sure that we have 1,000,000 defects and 1,000,000 myths and myths. One of the temperaments of human beings told you that their mind is working on this pattern, looking for the absolute truth and hates the missing information. So he always tells you that any event that goes through life, your mind tries to look for reasons that he rides with each other and connects them to such and shows you a state of absolute right and deludes that you are right and you are wrong. By the way, this talk is true." So he was talking about the psychological experience of a group of people who were entering the person in an empty room with only one lamp, and they used to tell him whenever he pressed the button and the lamp turned on, you counted a point with half an hour. Try to collect as many points as possible, and in the end you will get the prize, and so on. He told you, so people would come in and give the button after several clicks, and he would solve the way to make the lamp light up. Is it a button press every 5 minutes, 5 press a button together, or 2 presses, and so on. He says the person experimented with several possibilities. One of these possibilities succeeds believing or his mind depicting him that this method is the right thing to do, so he gets up and goes back and reapplies it. For example, it is thought to be 3 compressions after waiting for a minute after the press. This method is right. He says he repeats this process, and whenever he repeats it he discovers that he was wrong and looks for a new way that he thinks is right. He says so much that there are people who are starting to invent strange things. He says there was a girl touching the ceiling a few times and then pressing a button, and she thought that was the right thing to do. He says that she came out of a room very exhausted, the witness in the case that the lamp was lit randomly. There was no pattern that originally allowed the lamp to illuminate the whole subject randomly, but the minds of the people in the room were under the illusion that the method set with the push of a button would make the lamp and that it was the right way. And all this talk is empty talk, so it tells you to always keep in mind that you are wrong, and I am as well, and your mind tries to collect all the information and events and link them and tell you a situation in which it deludes you that you are right, but in order to be right, always think you're wrong. God made us like those who said this. The passage with the following points. First of all, any yes that happens in your life circumstances beyond your control is your control. That is, yes, you are entitled to blame it. But remember that you are responsible for your reaction to these situations. Either you give into it or you make change. And this is true whether you like it or what you like. Second, be careful not to think that you are always right. You may be wrong, but you are wrong in any way today, and try to question everything you think you are right about, and from here you will reach the mistakes that cause the disruption of a certain thing in your life or the destruction of a certain thing in your life, and avoid repeating this mistake in the future. You will reach a state of less mistakes than the situation you live in today. Always remember that you are wrong and so am I. Here ends the explanation of the 5th and 6th chapters of the book The Art of Indifference. I hope it was a useful dose for you, and if you think there are people who can benefit from this video, I wish you could share with them. If you would kindly, the likes that you will give me on this video contributes to its spread to the largest possible segment. Here ends the explanation of the 5th and 6th chapters of the book The Art of Indifference. I hope it was a useful dose for you, and if you think there are people who can benefit from this video, I wish you could share with them. If you would kindly, the likes that you will give me on this video contributes to its spread to the largest possible segment. Like what I told you in the first video, if you like the idea of the channel, subscribe with us and follow the rest of the social media programs. The links will remain in the description. The dopamine dose for today, my follower friend, has ended. Until I meet you, God willing, next week with a more beautiful and better dose. Thanks for listening, and thank you for your invaluable time. Peace.